Tonight, icon, legend, Mick Jagger in a rare interview.
Either you're dead or your longevity.
Mick Jagger here for the hour. A primetime exclusive next on Larry King Live. Stone's seminal album, Exile on Main Street, was reissued last week. I sat down with Mick Jagger to talk about it and how the group has managed to remain relevant and on its game for more than 4 decades. What a special edition of Larry King Live we have for you tonight. It's the eve of our 25th anniversary, because we started back, 25 years ago, the longest running show, and it feels like forever. Yeah. And who's here with us but Mick Jagger?
Hi there.
One of our top requests of all time. He's finally made it. Today is the day of the release of the Stones' album Exile on Main Street. Never before heard tracks. This is an amazing release. At the same time, it coincides with an amazing documentary called Stones in Exile. We're going to talk about all those things. I'll show you some little clips. This is a big re-release. But first, what Frank Sinatra said to me once, there's a lot to be said for longevity.
Well, you got no options, really, have you?
Right.
Either you're dead or your longevity.
How do you account for the longevity of the Stones as a success?
Well, I think the Stones are very lucky. Yeah, you always need a lot of luck. And I think they were in the right place at the right time. And we are, quite... When we work very hard. And I think you need all those things. It's no good just being hard-working. There's lots of people hard-working. But you've got to be hard-working on your game and be lucky.
How about staying there, though?
Staying there, yeah. Well,
that's hard.
It requires a certain, tactics. It's like being a football player or something. If you're going to last, you've got to play, a bit clever. When you're young, you can just rush everything, and then as you get older, you've got to be a bit more clever. I'm going to change my sporting metaphors. But you know what I mean? So
a lot goes into it.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, there's a lot goes into it, and if you're going to do a tour or something, that's a lot of work, and you have to pay attention to the big picture. The big picture has to be right. The overall has to be right, and also the details have to be right.
But don't eliminate the word luck, huh?
No, I'm not eliminating luck. There's a very big... Because we all know, everyone that's been in whatever way of life, or you're in, if you get to be very successful, there's usually some point where you just happen to be lucky, that tips it right over into being kind of okay and quite successful into tipping it over into being into another point,
And how do you keep it up all the time? In other words, when you get on that stage, what keeps it going? What drives?
What really keeps it going is the audience, because if the audience, you feed from the audience and their enthusiasm, and if you have an enthusiastic audience, you feel that you can give more. It's going back to the sporting metaphor. Any guy, once you feel like you have a bad day and you feel you've got a bit of a cold, but as soon as you go out there,
they drive you.
And you usually don't have any problems.
But when you started, you didn't have the audience because you were new.
No, that's not well. We had a little audience. When we started off playing, we used to playing. Everyone else. We used to play small clubs, but we had a super enthusiastic club audience, and that audience really taught us how to behave, how to have repartee with the audience and so on. Even from those early days, it's not really that different to the exchange that you get with a big audience.
Now let's get into this album, Exile on Main Street. What the decision to re-release an album?
Yeah, but
how did that come about?
Well, there's a record label that bought all our catalogue stuff called Universal. They're called, and they wanted to do something a bit different to mark this, to put out these albums again. So they picked Exile as being one of the most famous, and they said, well, will you kind of do something, will you try and find time to remaster it, and also, is there any tracks that you didn't release at the time, and can you do something special? And I said, no, there's no tracks. There's nothing. It's all done. You know, it was a double album, and there's nothing left. But then I went in and I thought, well, I don't know. No, I really don't know if there is anything. So I went in, and Keith and I looked, and I looked with Don Was a producer, and we looked at all these tracks, and some of them were sent by people that thought they were like Stones experts. And I looked at them, I said, this does not sound like Exile. So some of them were not in the time of Exile at all. So I had to sort of define the time of what I thought Exile was, because Exile wasn't recorded in a month, it was recorded over a 3-year period. So I took this 3-year period and found tracks that were recorded in that 3-year period, and some of them, the alternate takes, I just left as they are, and some tracks didn't have any songs on them, any vocals.
And nothing new?
New in what way?
New recording for the album?
Yeah, I mean, I did. Some of them had no vocals on them.
Oh, you added vocals?
And they had no song, no vocals, no words, no music, just tracks, which were really good. Some of the tracks were all done and perfect, except I wasn't on them. So I thought, well, OK, so I'm going to do my... So I wrote words and I wrote melodies and sang them on some of them.
Taxes forced Jagger into exile. We'll talk about his life in France and what it was like to be a man without a country.